How's it going, everybody? Andrew Robinson here, back at it with another Max MSP tutorial. In this video, we are going to talk about the wonderful magical object node. Node is a graphical user interface object that outputs weighted values based on where the display knob is relative to the center of each node. That may sound pretty confusing, but I'm going to break it down for you. So let's just jump right into it. First things first, we are going to create the nodes object. And when you do that, this is what pops up. And we see one little circle with the number 1 in it. This is our node. And this little node does so much. But we need to set some attributes first to really make this graphical user interface object more user-friendly. So let's press the A on the keyboard, create an adder UI, patch that into our nodes object. We're going to lock the patch, click where it says nothing, and we're going to look for the attribute display knob. And then you will see once you do that, that it is set to 0. So 0 is hidden, which means we can't see the display knob. There's an option for circle and an option for picture. We are going to select the circle option. And once you do that, you see this wonderful little yellow circle in the center of our nodes object. So that is our display knob. And if the patch is locked, you can then click on this object and drag it around. Now, outside of the left outlet, you'll see it says interpolated weights for each active node. Let's just create a message box by pressing M on our keyboard. We're going to patch that outlet into the right inlet of the message box. Lock our patch again, click on the display knob, and we're going to drag it towards the center of the one circle. And you'll see as I slowly do that, the value coming out of here is slowly moving up towards 1. So that is what nodes does. It gives us a weighted value where the closer this display knob is to the center of the circle, the closer this value is to 1. And we can create tons of nodes to get tons of different weighted values. So let's just do that. We're going to press A again, create another adder UI object, patch that into our nodes object, click on it, and we are going to look for the nodes number, or number of nodes attribute. And you see it says 1 right now. We only have 1. We're going to just pick a random number. As we increase this, we'll see it changes from like 1 to 7. And we now have 7 nodes. And as I move this, you see our message box updated. It's now got a list of 7 floating values. So that is the weighted value for each of these 7 nodes and where our display knob is relative to it. So you'll see also as I have the patch lock that I can also just click on the number and drag it around. So we can put these nodes in this square wherever we like. And if we just drag this display knob around, you'll see as I'm moving from one node to the other, our value is increasing closer to 1. And we're on the second node, and it's the second value that is closer to 1. I'm not in any of the other nodes, so they're all set to 0. But now I've just moved into the 7. You'll see that because the 2 and the 7 overlap here, it's hard to see because it's the same gray color, but you'll see we have a value for our second node and for our 7th node. Now, if you want to see that better, there is an attribute for that as well. Let's press A on our keyboard again, create another adder UI, patch that into the nodes object, click on it, and you see the top option is alternating candy colors. It's set to 1. We have 7, so let's set 7 in there, and bam, now our nodes are colorized, and we can see that overlapping area a little bit better, especially down here with some of these nodes, and that's super cool. This is definitely a lot more clear now where we are and where these nodes are. And that right away, you could see how this may be super useful, but the amazingness with the node object definitely does not stop there. We can hold down the Options key on our keyboard, click on the number, and then drag the mouse up and down to change the size of each node, which is really amazing because then we can get a lot of different sizes for each of these and really customize things. You can even do stuff like this where you have 2 nodes encapsulated within another node because they're allowed to overlay. It doesn't matter. It's all relative just where the display knob is to the center of each of these nodes. So let's do something fun with some of these nodes. Let us use these values to control the volume and maybe some effects of some sound stuff. So we can create a really unique way of playing music in Max MSP. I'm just going to move these adder UIs up here, move this here, and just give us some space to work with. So first things first, we're going to have to unpack all 7 of these values. And we're just going to use the unpack object to do that. We're going to type 7 Fs into it, so that way we have an outlet for each floating value of our node. And once we patch the output of the node into that, then we can take these floating point values and we can get each individual one out of each outlet. I'm not going to set that up all the way to show you, but you see here we have the second one. It's pretty much the same value. It's just rounding it for display purposes. So that's super cool. We're going to just get rid of those since we know that it is working. And we're going to next drag in a bunch of sound files. You can feel free to use whatever sound file you have that you like. I'm going to use some of the default sounds from Max, which you can locate by clicking on this audio icon. You might see a few in this list that you don't have because I have them stored in the folder that hosts these on my computer. But that's okay, don't worry about it. Just some of these are default with Max, such as the drum loop, so we'll drag that one in. Let's go back. Zhongli, it's another drum loop. It's really cool. What else is there? There's talk. And social. So now that we have all of our sound samples dragged in, these are playlist objects, which is one of the ways that Max hosts sound files and plays them back. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the load mess object, which upon opening this patch will output a message. And we're going to output the message 1, just the value 1, into all of these, which is going to tell them to start playing once we open this patch. I'm then going to copy this load mess object and I'm going to say loop 1. This will turn the loop on for all these objects as well. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to highlight all these patch cords by holding the option key down and selecting all of them. I'm then going to select this green circle while holding the option key down and copy and paste every outlet over, or every patch cord over to this outlet. And again, I did that all just by holding the option key down while selecting and dragging the patch cords. So with that set up, we can lock our patch, and we're just going to double click these load mess objects, which is going to force them to output as well as if we had just opened up this patch. So now these are all looped and they're all playing, which is fine. And we're going to multiply the output of this by 0, and we're going to say multiply tilde because we're dealing with audio signals, so it's got to have that tilde at the end so it knows it's an audio signal. And if we multiply all of these values by 0, what we're doing is we're essentially taking the amplitude output of this sound and we're multiplying that by 0, which means that we won't have any amplitude and therefore no volume. We're not going to hear anything. So you can use that kind of as a volume filter in Max. And if we just output all of these to our speakers, again, I'm just going to do the highlight and drag copy patch cord technique. Even though they're outputting to the speakers, because we're multiplying them by 0, that amplitude is 0, we're not hearing anything. But we can take these floating point values, patch them into the right inlet of the multiply tilde object, and then this now becomes our volume. So the closer this knob is to the center of the node, the louder this sound is going to be.
我能跟你说几句话吗？句话吗？说几句话吗？说几。
So that's pretty cool, and already that's really fun to play with. And again, however you set these up, you can get so many different configurations because you can just lay these out however you want. There is no right or wrong answer for that at all. We'll move them this way, so we get a little bit more of the crossfade. That's beautiful. That is so much fun to play with already, and we just are getting started. So let's keep going. Let's use the remaining 3 floating point values to control some cool sound effects that will hopefully make this sound even crazier. The first one that we can do is let's do the speed of the playback for each sample, which we can do by just changing the speed message. So I'm going to say prepend speed, which will put the speed message in front of whatever gets patched into this outlet. We're going to patch this floating point value, and we're going to output this to all of our sound samples. So this will then, play at normal speed if we're exactly in the center, and if we're on the edge of it, it's going to play it back very slowly. Okay, so remember this is relative to this outlet now, which is our 5th note, I believe. So it's not the edge of the note itself, it's the edge of this 5th note. So I'm going to put this in the center and just encapsulate it so it's covering the entire area. That's so fun. Okay, let's keep going. We have speed. We can actually, let's do something a little bit fun. We're going to multiply our floating point value by 4. So it could also play maybe really fast. Let's just see how this sounds. That's fun. 4 might be too fast. Let's just do 2. Yeah, I like that a lot better. Alright, now that we've got that set, let's move on to the next effect. Let's do something. We're going to create a really basic tremolo. And we're just going to take the output of each of these, and if we connect this multiply tilde to this multiply tilde, once again we are going to multiply the amplitude by that 0 value and not get any output whatsoever. That is okay, because we are going to do something very similar to what we just did, except instead of using the floating out point values from the node outlet, we're going to create a cycle tilde object, which is a sine wave. And so if we multiply each of these amplitudes by that sine wave value, it's going to turn up and down relative to the frequency speed, which could be really fast or really slow. I press F on my keyboard to create a floating number box, and I'm just going to turn this up, and let's start playing some sound. So there you go. You can hear that tremolo effect going on. So it actually sounds like a tremolo when cycle is set to about 3, and if we go a little higher than that, we get some kind of weird, like, artificial distortion, and then any higher than that, you get some, like, sideband frequencies. So we won't go that high, but we shall at least hit no tremolo, and we'll do up into some of that distortion effect with, like, the sweet spot being around the middle. And I totally set that scale up wrong. We are going to scale 0 to 1 to be to our range of 0 to 10. So that way our floating output 0 to 1 comes through this patch cord. We're going to scale it to 10, and that will control the speed of that tremolo.
对不起，我能跟你说几句话吗？对不起，我能跟你说几句话吗？对不起，我能跟你说几句话吗？对不起，我能跟你说几句话吗？对不起，我能跟你说几句话吗？
That's cool. That kind of makes it sound more alien. So because I want the tremolo to affect all of these, we also will put this in a large space and towards the center, like such. Maybe make it a little bit larger.
对不起，我能跟你说几句话吗？对不起，我能跟你说几句话吗？对不起，我能跟你说几句话吗？对不起，我能跟你说几句话吗？对不起，我能跟你说几句话吗？对不起，我能跟你说。
That's really cool. It really works well on the guitar samples one. Okay, we've got one more outlet, so let's add one more effect, shall we? Let's do a delay effect, which we can do very easy using the tap in and tap out objects. So the way this works is you define the millisecond delay length in the tap in, and this is going to be your maximum delay time. And then we can change the value of the tap out to be some like fraction of this maximum time. So we could, delay for just like 50 milliseconds, or we could delay for this whole 6,000 milliseconds. And it's the tap out value. You can change that to change how much of this maximum time you want. The other thing to do is then we multiply the output of this by a value less than 1. So that way it repeats the sound, but it sort of lowers that amplitude value of that echo until it fades out, which would sound like a natural delay effect. And all you do is then once you multiply it by that, you patch that back into the top of the tap in outlet. And then whatever sound goes through this is going to get delayed. And I think the simplest way to set this up and to work is just to take the output of all these multiply objects and patch them into the tap in. And we'll set it so that we have a scaling value for our tap in, and we'll say, I don't know, 0 to, we'll do 1,000 of the 6,000 rather than the full value. And we'll just patch that to the tap out object. So that will change our delay time. So if we're not in this 7th node, which I'm now going to move and to the center and make big as well, somewhere, I don't know, somewhere like there, then we're not going to get any of that delay at all. We'll just hear the normal sound as is. So let's see how that goes. It would help if I remember to then patch the tap out into our output as well. Let's increase this. Oh, that might be the other problem. I've had one too many zeros. There we go. That is very cool. And things don't have to end here. This may be a little confusing as a user interface now that we have all these things set up. You're like, which is what sound and what effect? You might, set this all up and forget about it. That is okay, because we can also change what is displayed in the center circle. It doesn't have to be numbers. We can set it to actually be whatever text we want. The easiest way to do that is to click on the node's object, click on the eye icon to open up the inspector, and just scroll down to where it says node's name. You see it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're going to click edit. It's going to pull up this little box right here where we see that, and then we could put in the names for whatever we want. So our first node, because we did everything in order and it's outputting in order, we know is the volume for our drum loop. So we'll set this to be drum loop. Our second one will be jongly. Our third will be talk. Our fourth will be social. Our fifth will be the tremolo effect. I can't spell anything. And our last will be delay. And there we go. Now you see the The node names have updated to display text that we have typed into it. Okay, that was really cool and awesome. And again, things don't have to end here. We have seen that you can click and drag around the display knob to change this, but that's not the only way to input. If you just send a list into this inlet here, it will take those floating values as an interpolation for where this display knob is going to go. So let's just set that up real fast. We're going to create a pack object, say FF. We're going to patch that into there. We're going to do a floating number box and a floating number box by pressing F. Patch those into the pack, move them down, change their values, and you'll see, yep, if we just stay between 0 and 1, this is the X, this is the Y. This is not outputting because this is a cold outlet, but that's okay. That's not really an issue because what we're going to do is we're going to automate this real fast. So we're going to create a drunk object, which is like random, except it does it in a stepwise function. So first we'll define our range, and then we'll define our step, and basically this just creates random values that can be close together. Because whatever, it'll output a number, and then whatever number it outputs next has to be either 80 above or below this within that range. So it'll make it just kind of more smooth, but not really, because it's still random. We'll make 2 of those, then we'll divide them each by 255 so that they are normalized, because the maximum output from drunk is 1 less than what you define for the range, just like our random object. So the top value is going to be 255. So if we divide 255 by 255, we get 1, and that is the maximum normalized value. We're going to patch those into that. We're going to create a line object. We're going to say 0 with the decimal point, so it recognizes floating point numbers. We're going to create another pack object, say F, and then 1000. That will create a ramp of 1000 milliseconds. So whatever this outputs will go through this pack object. It'll take a full second to get to that value from the previous value, and that will be our X and our Y, and we'll just trigger this to update every second. So basically every second it will just wander to a new spot, and it's getting difficult because I don't have enough space up here. So apologies while things are being moved around, but we'll just do that, and then we'll do a metro and say 1000, patch that into both of these so that bang hits those and gives us a random output. And last but not least, we'll create a toggle, patch into the metro to turn it all on. And if we just click it, you'll see it's working. So yeah, I thought this idea was a super cool use of the nodes object, but I hope you see how this object can be used to do so much, because we can define any number of nodes we want and then route those values out to really control anything. And this is such a unique way of controlling data in Max MSP, and that's why I think this nodes object is super cool. Like, who would have thought to play music back in this way? Certainly not me, not without the nodes object. So that's where I'm going to end this video. I hope there is a lot in there that you guys didn't know about, and you learned something new. If that is the case, if you did learn something new, please remember to like and subscribe, because that is how I know that you guys actually learned something, and I always really appreciate that. And that's going to be all for me. I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching.